And there are people who have been in with this company longer to kind of see the ebb and flow of geothermal production. I think, we saw a peak in the 70s with the oil embargo and, oil prices really spiking. Renewable resources were really cost effective, and geothermal was the most cost effective at the time. And so we see a lot of geothermal power plants built in the late 70s and early 80s from some of the largest oil companies in the United States. Then we see oil and gas prices go down, renewable development stalls for a little bit, and then comes back up. And I think we saw a real resurgence of that most recently in about 2008, and that was kind of a new administration really focusing on renewables. We saw this kind of emerging talking point, and there was a lot of funding for research and development. There was a lot of venture capital money flowing into the sector to develop these resources. That has somewhat, petered out again as we've seen solar prices really drop. And so a lot of that, I think, capital moved into the solar sector while those prices are so low. What we're really excited about now is that we see the geothermal value proposition coming back up because solar is an intermittent resource. And so when you build a lot of it, at some point it becomes worthless to build more of it if you're just stacking new solar on top of old solar projects and you can't produce power in the early morning when you need it or in the early evening. So we've seen, for example, in California, they deployed 19 gigawatts of solar in the last decade. An unbelievable success story for the deployment of solar. But now, new incremental solar is worthless to them. And as they try to meet a 60% RPS or 100% renewable portfolio goal, they need carbon resources that are flexible, that can provide power at night, in the morning, in the evening, and help them with the ramp. And that's leading them back to geothermal, and we're seeing the amount utilities are willing to pay for that geothermal increase, and we're thrilled because we're seeing new contracts that we've never seen. And Ormat recently signed the biggest contract it's ever signed, 200 megawatts with the Southern California Public Power Authority to deliver geothermal resources to them. So, I think like anything, the market kind of ebbs and flows, and I think this is a really exciting time again to see. We've survived, let's say, the low-cost solar boom, and we're seeing geothermal still has a place, or heat power still has a place in this market moving. I think every location has its own story to tell. Nevada, for example, just the two states. Nevada's kind of interesting because it developed geothermal very early on and has a lot of it. And so I don't think we're going to see that big intermittent duck curve that you showed earlier because they have capacity resources. They're primarily all natural gas and geothermal. So they're going to bring on solar slowly, and we're going to continue to kind of have both of them built at a normal pace. California did the opposite. They built 19 gigawatts of solar, and now they say, holy cow, how do we keep the lights on? We have to deploy storage. We have to deploy geothermal, and other countries are looking at the same thing. And so, Ormat is an international developer. We are working with places like Honduras and Guatemala and Latin America and so forth, and showing them, frankly, the California story and saying, you need to be a little forward looking. Don't buy the lowest cost, cheapest thing, because it may lead to actually costing you more money if you over procure something you don't need. The analogy I like to use here is we have a store called Costco. Okay, so it's a wholesale store that sells things in a massive quantity at a discount, because then you get to store the inventory and not them. So the joke is, if you want to go buy a bar of soap, you can't buy one, you have to buy 20 of them. So you go to Costco, you can't get out of the store without spending $100 or $200, and then you go home and you go, what am I going to do with 22 cans of soup or 15 bars of soap? And that's kind of what happened with the solar industry in California. They just overbought so much of it. And, that 15th bar of soap isn't as valuable as the one you need today.